Yo, what is up, y'all? My name is Rob Donaldson, and welcome back to another edition of Rob's Best Bets. And in this video, we are once again talking about college hoops, and I am so excited, y'all, because this is March. This is March. We're in the March Madness area right now. We got conference tournaments starting up this weekend. We got the final games of a season in conferences taking place this weekend as well. And, you know, on Friday, we had Marginal Profit brought in. Really bad beat on that Kent State-Akron game. We move, you know, again, still in the green. It didn't flip us into the red, but it kept us from having a really fantastic night. And when you're looking at the Saturday slate, what else can you say other than let's keep it going. Let's have another really great Saturday. Last Saturday, we brought in double-digit units and started off 8-1 against the spread, and I'm thinking that this slate could provide us with a lot of that same benefit. But with all that being said, y'all, let's take a second to shout out today's sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. And if you haven't already gone over there and signed up using promo code ROBDFB, make sure you go and do so because they'll give you guys a pretty sweet deposit match bonus. And also make sure you are following me over on Twitter/X so that you guys can kind of follow along with our Underdog Pick'em entry slips as well. But with all that being said, y'all, I'm ready to hop into these Saturday picks. All right, first up, we are heading out to the Patriot League, where we have a game between American and Colgate. And Colgate has sort of been the king of this conference over the past decade. And when you look at American on the other side, you know, they started off really promising to this season, and it felt like they were one of the teams that could potentially, you know, dethrone Colgate when it came time for the actual Patriot League Conference tournament. But man, things have kind of flipped on their head during the backstretch here in Patriot League play. And Colgate in this game is coming in playing some of the best ball of their season. They had a young team coming into the year, and they've really developed and blossomed. And I do think it's kind of coming to a head at this point where they're laying 4.5 points, and I think it's justified. So let's go ahead and lay the 4.5 points here with Colgate for 2 units for our first bet here on Saturday. For pick number 2, we are heading out to the Big East, where we have a game between Butler and Villanova. And Butler is another team that at the start of the season, they were dropping games to mid-majors that weren't very good. They were also just struggling in general in terms of non-conference play against higher major opponents, and also just in their own conference play as well. But in recent weeks, they have actually been playing a lot better basketball. It kind of feels like everybody is finding their roles a little bit better as well. And in this game, they're catching 7.5 points against a Villanova team that I also think is kind of peaking at the right time. But I think because of the win-loss records, because of Villanova's reputation, this line feels a little bit inflated. And for those reasons, I say we go ahead and take the 7.5 points here with the Bulldogs for 2 units for our second play here on Saturday. For pick number 3, we are heading out to the Big Ten, where we have a game between Maryland and Penn State. And Penn State, you know, this is a team that is probably not going to be able to make the Big Ten tournament because of the cut line in this conference. But if they are going to pick up, you know, a big winner and get their season, you know, to that point, it starts right here against Maryland, where, you know, it would be a big-time upset. But they have the best point guard in this conference, in Ace Baldwin. And when you are looking at it from that standpoint, they are never going to be out of a game. We've been betting on Penn State the last 3 times out. They have covered 3 straight games for us. And part of that is because they have a really great head coach. They also have a veteran-heavy lineup. But Ace Baldwin is that guy. And if there's anybody I want to jump in the foxhole with in terms of the Big Ten Conference, he is that guy. And I say we go ahead and do it once again, where they're getting 5.5 points here at home against a good Maryland team. So let's go ahead and take those points for 3 units for our third bet here on Saturday. For pick number 4, we are heading out to the MEAC, where we have a game between Miami of Ohio and Ohio. And this is a great rivalry game. And it's also a game that when you look at Miami of Ohio, I do wonder whether or not they peaked too early. Last time out, they drubbed Northern Illinois, which kudos to them. They were reeling a little bit, and I feel like that was a game that if they were going to get up, you kind of got to assert yourself in that game and show that you still got it. Well, they show that they still have it, but Ohio on the other side is getting healthy. They're also extremely well coached. I would even argue that they're one of the best coached teams in this conference. And in this game right here, I feel like the line is indicative of what's about to happen. And what's about to happen, I think, is Ohio blowout potentially, kind of like what we saw between Ohio and Akron a couple weekends ago. And for that reason, I say we go ahead and lay those 5 points for 3 units for our 4th bet here on Saturday. For pick number 5, we are heading out to one of my favorite games of the day, and that's actually going to be between Norfolk State and South Carolina State. It's a battle in the MEAC, and these two programs have really been coming to a head because if you watch MEAC ball, these two teams stand out as, in my opinion, the two best teams in this league. And Norfolk State has obviously been the king of this league for the past, 5 to 10 years. And when you're looking at South Carolina State, they're sort of the newcomers that have been rising up on the block under first-year head coach Eric Martin. And I do think that Eric Martin and these guys are going to be geared up, ready to go. I think there's going to be a fan contingent here as well. And they're only laying 1.5 points against a team with a glossier-looking record. And for that reason, I said we go ahead and lay it for 2 units for our 5th bet here on Saturday. For pick number 6, we are heading out to one of the best games on the card tomorrow. Texas Tech taking on Kansas in the fog, and Kansas has kind of been our downfall this year, but last time out they did cover very, very easily against Oklahoma State for us, and in this game they are laying a suspicious line, almost a classic Kansas line. But when you also have to kind of factor in here is that Texas Tech last time out was without their 2 leading scorers and honestly their 2 best players on the roster. And I do wonder, if that effort against Houston that we saw where they went toe-to-toe with those boys for the entirety of those 40 minutes, if that wasn't just kind of a one-game bump, rallying around the players that they had. And, that's a testament to McCasland and the Texas Tech, team. But I do think in that second game out, once you have sort of that limited star power and also just the unknown of whether or not those guys are going to be healthy or fully healthy, even if they play, I am all over Kansas here. So let's go ahead and lay the 4.5 points here with the Jayhawks for 3 units for our 6th bet here on Saturday. For pick number 7, we are heading out to the A10 where we have a game between George Mason and Duquesne. And if you want to talk about a line that just seems very, very suspicious, this is one of those lines because George Mason has been one of the top teams in this conference, if not the top team in this conference all season long. And, obviously last weekend they had the game against VCU. It was an island game because there's no return back to Fairfax for George Mason in that game. And now you got to kind of wonder where their motivations are the rest of the way. It kind of feels like VCU is going to lock in the number 1 seed here. And when you're looking at Duquesne, this is a team that on the back half of the season has been playing a lot better basketball, and they are a very athletic roster. And so it kind of makes sense when you see that they're at home. They're only getting 2.5 points against a team with a very glossy record. And I say we dive in, y'all. So let's go ahead and take Duquesne, getting the short number at home for 2 units for our 7th bet here on Saturday. For pick number 8, we are heading out to the SoCon where we have a game between UNC Greensboro and Samford Buckyball. And when you're looking at this game here, last time out when we saw UNC Greensboro, they were playing in a pretty massive Greensboro Coliseum Arena sort of deal, and no fans showed up. That was a real bother to me watching that Chattanooga game because I was just wondering where the fan contingent was. It was a great game. It should have been live, and it wasn't, and that's because it wasn't played on campus, Well, this game is going to be played on campus. This is also a big game for the SoCon in general. And when you're looking at this game here, I do think that Greensboro has the balance to take out Buckyball when Buckyball is traveling on the road. And for that reason, I said we go ahead and take the 1.5 points here for 4 units for our 8th bet here on Saturday. For pick number 9, we are heading out to the CUSA, where we have a game between Middle Tennessee State and UTEP. And Middle Tennessee State last time out stole a game against New Mexico State. It was a grinder of an affair, but a good second half performance elevated them and won them a road game in a pretty tough environment. And now they're going over to UTEP, and UTEP has been reeling as of late. This is a team that started off extremely hot to begin conference play and even in non-con play. They took it to Louisville, gave Louisville one of the toughest games of Louisville's season, and that's because UTEP is loaded when you talk about just pure athleticism and pure talent from multiple different areas on the floor. And when you're playing the odds of can Middle Tennessee State go on the road 2 times in a row against 2 quality teams and win both of those, I'm thinking not. So let's go ahead and take UTEP, laying the 1 point here for 4 units again for our 9th bet here on Saturday. For pick number 10, we are heading out to the Big Ten, where we have an old school Pac-12 game between USC and Oregon. And Oregon has been one of those teams that has had multiple chapters to their season because they started off extremely hot. Then they tapered off. Then they picked up a win last weekend against Wisconsin, and it kind of felt like their season might have flipped right then and there. But USC's season is on the line in this game because they are one of the teams in the Big Ten near the bottom trying to make the cut line. And I do think that because this is a West Coast game where USC is not really in a travel spot, traveling out to, the Marylands or Rutgers of the world, I do think they're going to be geared up and ready to go under Coach Muss. And in this game against Oregon, 8 points just feels like a lot for 2 teams and 2 programs that just have a lot of history between each other as well. So let's go ahead and take those 8 points for 3 units for our 10th bet here on Saturday. For pick number 11, we are heading down to the SEC, where we have a game between Missouri and Vanderbilt. And when you're looking at this game here, Missouri has been one of my favorite teams just from an underrated resume standpoint because they haven't been getting national respect. I think a lot of that speaks to the fact that Missouri is not really a basketball brand, and also part of it is they lost every single SEC game last season coming into this year, and even when they were picking up big wins this season, I feel like they just weren't getting the right respect for it. But at the same time, Vanderbilt is one of the best stories in college basketball this season, a complete 1-year turnaround for Mark Byington, and I am fully bought into Mark Byington. I loved him at James Madison. I love him this season, and I do think that Vanderbilt is akin or very, very similar to Missouri in this matchup. But hey, because of that great resume, they're getting 2.5 points, or Vanderbilt rather is getting 2.5 points here at home. And I say we go ahead and take those points for 2 units for our 11th bet here on Saturday. All right, for our final game here on Saturday, we are heading out to the CAA, where we have a game between Elon and Stony Brook. I know, a very anticlimactic sort of game to finish on, but when you are looking at this game here, it's Stony Brook Senior Day, which, how much does that factor in? I think actually quite a bit, because this is a very veteran-heavy lineup, and Elon on the other side of this thing has kind of tapered off in the back end of conference play because, man, they started off extremely hot. It kind of felt like they were going to be one of the better stories in college basketball, but, losers of 3 of their last 5, and if you extend it past that point even as well, it hasn't really been pretty over their last 10, and in this game here, you're seeing a short line, despite, Stony Brook having the record that they do, and Elon being 5 games over 500, and I just feel like that is so indicative of what's about to happen here. So let's go ahead and take the 5.5 points with Stony Brook on Senior Day for 2 units for our final bet here on Saturday. All that being said, I really want to thank you guys for checking out today's video, and if you do want to show some love, make sure you drop a like in this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and make sure you comment down below. And if you haven't already hopped in on our ASUN Conference Tournament Futures, make sure you go over there and check out the video on that, because that's a great way to get in tune with March and really start it off with a bang. I think we've nailed that tournament so far. Every single line has moved in our favor pretty significantly already. So if you do have questions, throw them my way. I'm more than happy to answer them for you. But with all that being said, y'all, I will see you in a future video. Take it easy.